I invite you to connect with the voices of the Bible as we listen to God's word from Daniel chapter 3, 14 through 19 and 23 through 28. Today we encounter one of Scripture's most dramatic moments. 3 young men standing before a furious king, facing death in a superheated furnace, yet speaking with remarkable calm and clarity. Their story speaks directly to anyone who's ever faced pressure to compromise their deepest values, anyone who's wondered if standing for truth is worth the cost. Picture ancient Babylon at its height of power. Nebuchadnezzar has conquered nations, including Judah, and brought the brightest young minds to serve his empire. Among them are 3 Jewish men known by their Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They've adapted to much in this foreign land: new language, new education, new careers. But now the king erects a 90-foot golden statue and commands universal worship. This isn't just about religious preference. In the ancient world, refusing to honor the king's gods meant rejecting the king's authority. It was treason. The furnace wasn't merely punishment, it was a political statement. These 3 men aren't troublemakers or rebels. They've served faithfully in the government, but this crosses a line they cannot cross. The passage opens with Nebuchadnezzar giving them one last chance. Listen to his words. Is it true that you don't serve my gods? He can't believe it. These are successful young men with promising careers. Surely they'll see reason. He even repeats the musical cue. When you hear the instruments, just bow. Simple. Their response in verse 16 astounds. We don't need to answer your question. This isn't disrespect. They're saying some decisions don't require deliberation because core convictions have already determined the answer. They've already decided who they serve. Then comes one of Scripture's most powerful declarations of faith. Notice the careful balance in verses 17 through 18. If our God, the one we serve, is able to rescue us from the furnace of flaming fire and from your power, your majesty, then let him rescue us. But if he doesn't, know this for certain, your majesty, we will never serve your gods. That phrase, but if not, changes everything. Their obedience doesn't depend on their deliverance. They're not making a deal with God. We'll stand if you save us. Their faith transcends outcomes. God might deliver them. God might not. Either way, they stand. The king's rage intensifies. The furnace is heated 7 times hotter, so hot it kills the soldiers who throw them in. Yet in verse 24, Nebuchadnezzar jumps up in shock. He sees 4 figures walking unbound in the flames, and the 4th looks divine. God doesn't prevent the furnace. God doesn't cool the flames. Instead, divine presence appears within the fire. The 3 men walk unharmed, not even smelling of smoke. The only things burned are the ropes that bound them. Sometimes God's deliverance means not absence of fire, but presence in fire. The flames that were meant to destroy became the place where God's glory was revealed. This ancient story speaks powerfully to our modern moments of decision. Every day brings its furnaces, situations where compromise seems reasonable, where standing for truth costs us something real. The workplace that asks you to mislead customers, the social group that bonds through mocking others, the family gathering where keeping peace seems to require silencing your conscience. The 3 men teach us that faithful living requires what we might call pre-decisions, values so central that when pressure comes, the choice is already made. They didn't need to huddle up and discuss whether to bow. Their commitment to God had already answered that question. But here's what's crucial. They held their conviction without self-righteousness. They didn't lecture Nebuchadnezzar about idolatry or condemn others who bowed. They simply stated their position with calm dignity. We cannot do this. This story also reminds us that God's presence doesn't always mean prevention of hardship. Sometimes following God leads us into the furnace, but we never enter alone. That 4th figure, that divine presence, walks with us through whatever flames we face. Consider this week, what are your non-negotiables? What principles shape your life so deeply that certain choices are already made? And when you face your furnace, when standing for those principles cost you, remember that you don't stand alone. The voices from Daniel 3 Chapter 3 echo across centuries, calling us to courageous faith that doesn't depend on outcomes. These 3 young men show us that integrity is possible even under intense pressure. that God's presence appears most clearly in our hardest moments, and that faithful witness can transform even the hardest hearts. Nebuchadnezzar himself ends up praising God. Their ancient courage speaks to our modern challenges. When you face your furnace this week, remember, you're not alone in the flames. Thanks for listening to the Voices of the Bible. I encourage you to read the full passage and discover what God might be saying to you through this powerful story.